Everyone is talking about XRP's price, but they might be missing the billion-dollar story happening right behind the charts. We've all seen the predictions and the endless debates. But what if the key to XRP's real value isn't in speculative chatter, but in a quiet, calculated race to reshape global finance? Ripple is making a massive $1 billion bet to bring real-world assets onto the XRP Ledger through a major partnership with Archax. This isn't just about enterprise tech. This could be the very catalyst that pushes XRP toward a $6 valuation. We're about to connect the dots between tokenization, a new stablecoin, and a flood of institutional money to show how this wave of real-world assets could unlock a price you thought was impossible. This may be the most significant fundamental shift in XRP's history, and the details truly matter. Forget what you think you know about XRP's value. We're not talking about small incremental gains. We are talking about a complete rewiring of its utility that could anchor its value to trillions of dollars in real-world assets. The conversation is shifting from speculative hype to tangible, institutional-grade application. Ripple and its partners are building the plumbing for a new financial world with XRP at the center. The question is no longer if institutions will adopt blockchain, but how and where. All signs are pointing to the XRP Ledger, and the scale of this operation is staggering. We are about to see hundreds of millions and soon over $1 billion in assets flow onto the XRPL over the next year. This is the institutional adoption we've been waiting for. So what exactly is real-world asset tokenization, or RWA? Simply put, it's creating a digital token of a physical or traditional financial asset on a blockchain. Think of it as a digital deed for a house, a share of stock, or a piece of a government bond. Instead of a paper certificate in a vault, you get a secure, easily transferable digital token. Why is this a revolution? Because the market for these assets is colossal. We're talking global real estate, stocks, and bonds, trillions of dollars in value that have been slow to move and expensive to trade. The current financial system built on old tech like Swift takes days to settle transactions through a web of intermediaries. Tokenization changes all that. It enables 24/7 markets, near instant settlement, and fractional ownership, meaning you could buy a small piece of a commercial building or a fine art painting. The numbers from financial titans are staggering. Projections estimate the market for tokenized assets could hit $16 trillion by 2030. McKinsey is a bit more conservative, but still projects a market size of $2 to $4 trillion in tokenized securities alone by that same year. We are at the very beginning of a multi-trillion-dollar migration of assets from traditional ledgers to the blockchain. This is where it gets interesting. What if a significant piece of that value chose a single, highly efficient blockchain? The XRP Ledger was purpose-built for finance, having already processed billions of transactions with settlement times of just 3 to 5 seconds for a fraction of a cent. It wasn't designed to pivot to finance, it was born for it. This isn't a hypothetical future, it's the race Ripple is determined to win, and their first major move puts them at the heart of institutional finance in one of the world's most important financial hubs. This brings us to Ripple's partnership with Archax. Archax isn't some crypto startup. They are the United Kingdom's first and only digital asset exchange, broker, and custodian regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA. This is critical. For institutions like banks and asset managers to touch tokenized assets, they need a fully compliant and regulated partner. Archax is that partner. Their collaboration expanded in a huge way in June 2024 with a bold goal: bring hundreds of millions of dollars in tokenized real-world assets onto the XRP Ledger within the first year. The bigger target is even more ambitious: over $1 billion in tokenized RWAs on the XRPL by mid-2026. This is happening now. Archax is actively working with financial institutions to tokenize their assets, like equities, debt, and money market funds, and giving them the option to issue them on the XRP Ledger. We saw the first major example in November 2024 when Archax and Ripple enabled access to a tokenized money market fund from ABRDN, a massive UK asset manager, right on the XRPL. So why are these institutions choosing the XRP Ledger? Marcus Infanger, a senior VP at Ripple, put it best: the industry is at the start of the next major adoption phase where blockchain will deliver real utility. The XRPL is built for this. It has a native decentralized exchange, DEX, that's been running for over a decade. More importantly, Ripple has been building compliance-focused tools. The coming wave of multi-purpose tokens, MPTs, will allow for creating complex financial instruments directly on the ledger. Another key feature is the permissioned DEX, which lets institutions create walled garden trading environments for verified participants only, satisfying tough regulatory rules. We are witnessing the creation of a complete ecosystem for institutional finance on the XRPL. Archax provides the regulated on-ramp, the XRPL provides the fast and cheap settlement, and new features provide the compliance that big money demands. This isn't just a partnership, it's a strategic beachhead in the multi-trillion-dollar war for RWA tokenization. The billion-dollar Archax partnership is the headline, but it isn't happening in a vacuum. It's supported by three other critical pillars Ripple has been methodically putting into place: the RLUSD stablecoin, spot XRP ETFs, and a massive tech upgrade to the XRP Ledger itself. When you see how these connect, the path to a $6 XRP becomes much clearer. Pillar 1 is Ripple's stablecoin, RLUSD. Launched in December 2024, RLUSD is a dollar-backed stablecoin for institutional use. In its first year, it has already surpassed a $1 billion market cap and broken into the top 10 stablecoins. RLUSD is the lubricant for the entire tokenization machine. When institutions trade tokenized assets on the XRPL, they need a stable digital dollar for settlement. RLUSD is the answer, enabling on-chain fiat settlement and serving as a bridge for real-time cross-border payments. Pillar 2 is the floodgate of institutional capital, XRP spot ETFs. Launched in late 2025, these exchange-traded funds have been an overwhelming success. In just the first 4 weeks after launching in mid-November, XRP ETFs attracted a stunning $897.35 million in cumulative net inflows. As of early December, data shows this trend continuing, with total assets under management quickly approaching the $1 billion mark. What's remarkable is the consistency, with inflows recorded nearly every single day since their launch. This creates a new class of institutional investors steadily accumulating XRP through regulated products, providing a powerful source of liquidity and a rising floor for the price. Pillar 3 is the technological engine upgrade. Ripple isn't just relying on its existing tech. A native XRPL lending protocol is set for a validator vote in the second quarter of 2025, which will allow institutions to create lending vaults using RLUSD and RWAs as collateral. Another huge upgrade is the EVM sidechain, which went live in Q2 2025. This bridge connects the massive pool of Ethereum developers directly to the XRP Ledger's liquidity and speed. These upgrades are turning the XRPL into a full-service platform ready for any institutional use case. So, let's connect the dots. What we have is not one single catalyst, but a powerful convergence of factors, a flywheel effect. First, you have real-world assets flowing onto the ledger via the Archax partnership, on track to top $1 billion by mid-2026. This creates real utility. Every trade on the XRPL's DEX requires a small amount of XRP for the transaction fee, which is then burned, creating a constant deflationary pressure. Second, the RLUSD stablecoin provides the deep liquidity needed for institutions to trade these assets seamlessly, boosting activity across the entire ecosystem. Third, the XRP spot ETFs are creating a relentless source of new demand from traditional finance. With inflows approaching $1 billion in the first month alone, this institutional buying pressure is absorbing supply from the open market, which some analysts believe could lead to a supply squeeze. When you combine these three forces, the path to $6 becomes a logical progression. Analysts have been highlighting this price target, linking it directly to this surge in institutional adoption. So what does the timeline look like? The base case scenario sees a steady climb into the $3 to $4 range by 2026, as Ripple and Archax prove the RWA concept. However, the bullish case, the path to $6 and beyond, is where it gets exciting. If the tokenization push gains major momentum while ETF inflows continue their aggressive pace, it could trigger a powerful feedback loop. Success drives more interest, which drives more ETF inflows, which tightens supply and pushes up the price. That price action then draws more attention to the ledger's utility, attracting even more projects. In this scenario, XRP could break its all-time high and make a clear run toward the $6 mark by late 2026. This isn't wishful thinking. It's a thesis built on regulatory compliance, institutional partnerships, and powerful technology. The institutional grade utility for XRP is no longer a future promise. It's happening right now. The convergence of RWA tokenization, a dominant stablecoin, and massive ETF inflows is creating a perfect storm for value. If you want to stay ahead of this story and get the latest on how institutional money is reshaping crypto, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. We're tracking this billion-dollar race every step of the way, and you won't want to miss what's next. The journey to a $6 XRP isn't about hype. It's about a fundamental transformation. We've seen how Ripple's billion-dollar push with Archax is creating a regulated highway for real-world assets to flood the XRP Ledger. We've seen how the RLUSD stablecoin provides the fuel and how spot ETFs are opening the floodgates for institutional capital. This isn't just one catalyst. It's a strategic, multi-pronged assault on the legacy financial system. While many have been watching the price, Ripple has been building the utility. And in the long run, utility is what drives real, sustainable value. The race is on, the pieces are in place, and the path forward has never been clearer. Thanks for watching.